Aye up, ravers. Easter is fast approaching, and whenever Easter comes round, there always seems to be loads of biblical epics and sword and sandals films on the old telly. So ask the good ratrons and nickel ratrons over on my Patreon for their sword and sandal / biblical epic suggestions. And the rotating review randomizer selected Carry On Cleo! Hey! Yes, the Carry On team go to ancient Rome and ancient Egypt to take on the classic story of Antony and Cleopatra. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I'm pretty happy the wheel came up with Carry On Cleo, because I could have slipped up big time here. Because I forgot how long some of them historical epics are. Last time I tried to watch Ben Hur on telly, I forgot how long it were. At one point I had to go and mow the lawn, came back and it was still on. Then I had to pop to Do It All, and I came back and it was still on. I made sure I caught the chariot race bit though, because that is bloody good, isn't it? Brilliant sequence, still holds up now. How did they do it? If only we knew it! Now that being said, Ben Hur clocks in at a relatively lean 212 minutes. One of the other suggestions, 10 Commandments, 220 minutes. Cleopatra, one of the other suggestions, 243 minutes. That's 4 bloody hours long, that. And Jesus of Nazareth, what were I thinking putting that on there? That's over 6 hours, that one. That's a whole blooming day. Carry On Cleo, 93 minutes. I can manage that. Anyway, the film kicks off with the Roman invasion of Britain. And we meet a couple of ancient Britons. We meet Hengist Pod, a wheelmaker, played by Kenneth Connor, getting his ear chewed off by his long-suffering wife, Senna Pod, played by Sheila Hancock.
Fingers to the bone?
Working my fingers to the bone, washing and scrubbing and clearing up after you.
And they've got a new next-door neighbour, Horser, played by Jim Dale. Now, critics of this film may argue that this is not historically accurate.
Must excuse my wife, she's not quite herself. Poor old mother was eaten by a brontosaurus a few days ago.
Oh, that was too bad.
Yeah, that's fair enough, it ain't. But I would argue there's very few historical epics that are historically accurate. In the most recent Gladiator film, for example, Captain Darling's reading a newspaper in a cafe, despite the fact that the printing press wouldn't be invented for another few thousand years. Anyway, the ancient Britain's idyllic lifestyle is rudely interrupted by the Romans, led by Mark Antony, played by Sid James, and a scrap ensues where Horser and his fellow Britons, despite their fighting prowess, get captured. But fear not, because Hengist Pod has gone for reinforcements. Ah yes, Hengist Pod is, alas, a complete nutter pillock. And after he manages to get his son captured and all, him and Horser and the other Britons are transported to Rome to become slaves.
Oh, you silly pod.
Now, back in Rome, the returning conqueror Caesar, played by Kenneth Williams, gets a somewhat mixed reception from the public. Now, I reckon it's perfect casting this. Kenneth Williams as Caesar, Sid James as Mark Antony. Sid James is playing your more streetwise character, which he's very good at. He did that in Hancock, didn't he? He's streetwise geezer.
I'll do him one of these days.
Whereas Caesar is just a bit of a tit. Joan Sims is Mrs. Caesar. She ain't in this a lot, to be honest. I think they could have found a bit more for her to do, maybe. Charles Aucher is her dad, who's an old sage who has visions.
There was this room, see, and it was filled with lovely girls all lying about in things you could see right through.
Now we've got a parallel storyline going on as Horser and Hengist Pod escape from being sold into slavery, and after they've done a runner, they take refuge in a sacred temple with a load of Vestal virgins, who evidently were the scantily clad ladies that Charles Aucher were having a vision about. And he remembers another crucial detail about what happened to Caesar in his vision.
What happened then?
He was done.
What are you talking about? He had Bilius and the guards with him.
That's just it. It was them who did it.
So Caesar's taken a trip to consult the Vestal virgins, but unbeknownst to him, his bodyguard are going to do him over.
Infamy! Infamy! They've all got it in for me!
But luckily he's got the superb fighting skills of Horser to save the day. Not so much Hengist, unfortunately he's rubbish. But as Horser does a runner before Mark Antony gets there, they mistakenly think that Hengist is the man who single-handedly defeated all of Caesar's bodyguards. So Hengist Pod unwittingly becomes Caesar's champion. And Kenneth Connor is terrific, because his performance shows this fake bravado that Hengist has as he starts to believe his own hype. But at the other end of the spectrum, we see the cowardly Hengist when he's actually forced to do some fighting. A terrific performance from Kenneth Connor. Not the only great performance though, Jim Dale, he's brilliant in this. He's always good as the dashing hero, Jim Dale. But again, he's got loads of comedy with this performance as well. He's able to look brave and heroic one minute, and then look like an absolute pillock the next. Just superb. Now, perhaps the most inspired bit of casting is Cleopatra, played by Amanda Barry. Now, I think she'd been in one Carry On film before this, but she went in any more after this. I think that's a shame, because she's brilliant. Very funny. And wrote Cleopatra and Mark Antony are in cahoots, conspiring to bump off Caesar. So will they be able to do it? Or will Hengist Pod overcome the odds and actually be able to protect his gaffer? Now, there's a lot of folk who say this is one of the best Carry On films, and you can see why. Looks like they spent a lot more money on this one than they do normally. But that ain't strictly true. Apparently, they benefited from lots of hand-me-down sets and costumes from Cleopatra, the 4-hour epic that I avoided having to watch. Yeah, that was filmed the year before this, so they had all the stuff still hanging about. And it shows, it looks great, it looks like a proper historical epic. Certainly makes a change from the usual locations. You know, like Carry On Camping where they had to spray the fields green because it was filmed in middle of winter. Or Carry On Abroad, where the beach were actually Palmwood Studios car park.
Lovely, isn't it?
Not really, no. But it weren't just sets and costumes that they reused. No, apparently they got their wrist slapped for copying the movie poster for Cleopatra. 20th Century Fox sued them, made them use a different poster. Some folk got no sense of humour, have they? Now, I think this could well be up there with my favourite Carry On films, if not the favourite. There's a proper storyline to this one, which you did get more so, I think, with the earlier Carry Ons. The later Carry Ons, some of them just seem to be like just a trail of events and just a few sort of comic ideas stitched together. But this one it were a really good story, I thought. And it had character arcs. Yeah, for you folk who love that sort of stuff. Yeah, Hengist Pod, character arc. But it's a Carry On film, so you expect loads of double entendres and plenty of jokes. Did it deliver? Of course it did.
Him? Hey, what does that mean?
Mark Antony, she's his.
Could have been worse.
How?
Might have been Frank Anthony.
Yeah, I reckon the Carry On team have hit the sweet spot here. Great cast playing funny characters, proper story, and the right balance between a few double entendres and some historically accurate jokes.
I'm Agrippa.
And I know one or two holds myself, so you want to watch it, mate.
Yeah, we're in partnership now, you know. Marcus and Spencer's. It's my card.
Yeah, look at that. Ickle carved tablet business cards. Good joke. But more importantly, no printing press used for them, is there? No. So Carry On Cleo is more historically accurate than the last Gladiator film. Okie-do, on to Ray's ratings. Well, it's a Carry On film, this. And Carry On films can be hit and miss, if we're being generous. Some better than others. So when I'm going in to watch a Carry On film, I don't hope for anything more than a 2-star film. But this were brilliant. I thought it were brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a proper film, this. It's proper good. Obviously, they've got hand-me-down sets and costumes, which hasn't hurt. But it's a proper story. It ain't just lewd jokes. There are lewd jokes, but it ain't just that. And the Carry On team, I think they've been perfectly cast in the different roles they're in. Terrific film, this. I loved it. And just because it ain't 4 hours long, don't make it any less of an historical epic in my book. So I'm rating Carry On Cleo a 5-star, 2-star film. Now, whilst the whole cast were great, I reckon the MVP were Kenneth Connor. He was just brilliant in this. Yeah, he's the one you're rooting for all the way through. And I reckon he might be one of the most underrated members of the Carry On team, Kenneth Connor. because he can play all sorts of characters. Pillocks like Angus Pod, or stuffy upper class twits.
A spot of the old how's your father.
Or pompous Pillocks. He's great, Kenneth Connor. Also does a very good noise, very good at that, amongst other noises. And then to add extra emphasis to the ogling noise, he comes up with the most fantastic physical gestures. The Angus Pod leg shake. The back of the neck slap. Or my personal favourite, the single leg hop. Genius. Well, I hope you enjoyed my review of Carry On Cleo Ravers. And if you did, poke the old like button for me. Give it a good old poke. Maybe jab it with your sword, like Angus Pod would have done. On guard! Yeah. And share rate reviews with your mates. And subscribe to the channel if you ain't already a subscriber. Much appreciated, as are all them lovely comments you lot always keep popping on. Thanks so much for them. Apologies if I don't get around to responding to them all. And if you want to submit your requests for reviews, come and join us over on Patreon. We've got a lovely little community developing over there where you can submit your requests. You get early access to the reviews. There's a regular monthly roundup podcast and regular brain teaser challenges as well. So come and join us over on the old Patreon. And I'll pop a link in the description below. And copyright box permitting, I'll be back with another review for you very soon. So I'll see you next time. Okie doo!